Hi everybody, my name's Louisa. Welcome to my channel. I hope everybody had a great summer and I hope you enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. I can't believe that summer's almost over and fall is right around the corner. I'm looking forward to the cooler temperatures, but it is amazing how quickly this summer went by. So anyway, today I thought I'd put together a video, a continuation of the copper necklace that you and I made the other day. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to go ahead and put a link on the screen so you can go ahead and check it out. But I thought it would be a good idea to put together a video today to create a couple of more pieces to coordinate with that necklace. I was thinking more of like a set of earrings and a bracelet. So anyway, let's go ahead and see what we can come up with today. I know some of you are advanced speeders or have been doing jewelry for a long time, so you may not be as interested in this video today. But I wanted to put it together for those, mostly for those of you who are beginners, just to give you some idea of what to create to coordinate with the pieces that you make. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Even if you've been doing jewelry for a long time, it's still, I know for myself, I like to check out other people's videos and their processes and how they come up with ideas and things. So I'm hoping that everybody gets a little bit out of this video, and I hope you enjoy it. And so anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to get started. All right, so here's the beautiful necklace that you and I worked on a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to zoom in and take a look at the components, because we have to decide, you know, how we're going to construct the earrings and the bracelet. Now, generally speaking, you know, this medallion right here is quite large, so you don't really want large earrings because it would take away from the beautiful pendant. So the earrings need to be a little bit smaller. Now, normally, you know, if it's a statement necklace, you would scale down the earrings. You know, you don't want them to take away from anybody noticing the pendant, or if you don't want them to conflict with the pendant or the necklace. So that's normally how you would pair a set of earrings and necklace. Now this necklace is kind of a statement necklace because it has a large focal pendant. So we want the earrings to be somewhat scaled down, but we still want them to coordinate. And let me zoom in so we can take a look at the different elements of the necklace. So we have these beautiful beads here with the crystals. I think they're called pave beads. They have crystals glued on them, and they're pretty nice, but they're not that large. So we could make earrings, a couple of earrings using, you know, one of these beads on each earring, and the teardrop bead as well. We could use these. However, I would rather, you know, keep those by themselves and not have anything competing with it. So I'm more leaning towards perhaps using this element here as an earring with the teardrop bead underneath. I think that would look really pretty, and it's far away from where your ears would be, so it wouldn't conflict or compete with it. So that's what I'm leaning towards, and there's a lot of copper in that, so it would coordinate really well with the overall look. So yeah, for the earrings, I think we're going to use this element right here. I'm going to show you how to put that together because it's actually two links glued together, because that when I first purchased them, I didn't realize that it was hollow in the back, so I took two of them back to back and I glued them together. So we're going to do that, and we're going to attach this teardrop bead, and that would make a really pretty earring, I think. And it's not going to be too much. It's not going to look, you know, sometimes I'll make a set of a necklace and earring set, and then when I put it on, I realize that, you know, the earrings are too much. Because you don't want to be too busy. You don't want it to be too busy. You want it to look pulled together and coordinated without being too matchy or too overbearing would be a good word. So yeah, I think if we use that little element right there, I think that'll be just right. And so now we have to decide on how to construct the bracelet. So for the bracelet, I could go the easy route and just, you know, link a bunch of beads together, either using wire or maybe using some stretch cord or something, something like that. But I'm thinking to do something more unique. Since there's chain here, I was thinking about having a few focal beads on the bracelet and then using a bunch of chain to finish the bracelet off. So I have some ideas in mind about how we're going to do that. I was thinking, you know, instead of one bit of chain, maybe using several bits of chain. That would be cool. So and the bracelet, you know, you can actually make it a little bit more elaborate because it's not going to be competing too much with the necklace, because the necklace, you know, the distance between your wrist and your neck is quite far. So so on the wrist, you can have a little bit more elaborate kind of a design without it being overbearing. So that's what I'm thinking about. And so anyway, I'm going to gather up the beads and the chain and turn the camera around, and we're going to get to work on this, the designing of this bracelet and the earrings. Okay, first thing is first. So this component right here, we're going to have to put this one together before we do anything else. And we will be using some Hypo cement glue. I use the GS Hypo cement glue for jewelry, which has a precision tip that you can actually, you know, get into very tight spots with. So we're going to be using this, and we're going to have to let it dry. I don't like to mess with anything that I glue for at least an hour. Give it some time to dry up and cure a little bit. So anyway, I do have the links together, and I have already put one together ahead of time, but these are the links, and as you can see, they're hollow on the back. So what we want to do is we want to put two of them together like this, back to back, and so we're going to go ahead and do that. So we want to make sure that there's enough drying time. So let me clear this out of the way, and I'm going to try to get a piece of paper or something to protect my board. Okay, and here are the links, and let me get the glue. And very simply, you're just going to go ahead and apply a very thin layer to the edges. I don't know if you can see that. Very thin layer right on the edges of the entire component. And you know, you don't want to put too much. Now you might get some on your fingers. That's okay, I guess, as long as you wipe it off quickly, because it does dry and it can be a little bit of a problem to get it off your skin. So here I'm going along the edges, applying a thin layer of this glue, and hopefully I won't get too much on my skin. Okay, and so once you've got that thin layer of glue, go ahead and get the other piece, lay it on top, just like that. Make sure the edges are exactly lined up, one on top of each other. Okay, and I always like to put something on this to secure it while it's drying, and for that I use these very simple clips that you can get at Office Supply, and they're great because they have rubber tips on the end, so it won't damage your piece. But this is what I normally do when I'm letting something dry, and that's basically it. So anyway, I'm going to come back after this is dried, and we'll continue putting together the components of our earrings. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and assemble the earrings. My little links have dried, so we can go ahead and begin. And we're going to go ahead and use this teardrop shaped bead from the earring, as well as some head pins, and this is basically what it's going to look like by the time we're done. So for that, you know, I like to use my one-step looper. You know me, I love this tool. And the other day when I was talking about it, I couldn't find the size, but the larger one out of the two that I used is actually the size is on the side of the handle. 2.25 millimeter loop, and I believe that's the inner diameter of the loop. Of course, you could always use your trusty round nose pliers, to form the loops, but I like to use this one. So the first thing we do is we get one of the teardrop shaped beads, thread it on, and then thread the head pin through the looper, and you want to make sure that the pin goes through the back. All right. And the other thing too, you don't want the crystal to be too close to these jaws because it will shatter if it's too close. So once you've got it into position, give it a little squeeze, bend it a little bit so the loop is right where you want it to be, take it out, and I always end up fiddling a little bit with a loop, but I like to make sure that it's lined up and that the loop is closed. So for that I will use my round nose pliers. Just make sure that the end of the loop is touching the pin itself. All right, and so the next thing we're going to do is use some jump rings. Now I use 18 gauge jump rings a lot because I find them to be very reliable. A lot of people like to do wire wrapping for security, but I find that if you use 18 gauge jump rings, it's going to be pretty secure. And you know, they've never failed on me. I've always had good luck with these. So we're going to go ahead and grab a jump ring and open it up. Okay, and then we're going to grab the little bead that we just connected to the head pin. We're going to connect the loop to the jump ring just like that. Grab the component, and as you can see, it has loops on each corner. We're going to thread the jump ring through one of the loops and then close it up. Make sure that it's nice and closed. Okay. All right, so now we've got this. This is what we have. Okay, let's grab another jump ring. Open it up. Grab an ear wire. These are actually bronzy, antique bronze color, but they're nickel free, so they should be okay for people who are sensitive to metals. I know I am. A lot of times I use stainless steel regardless of the color of the rest of the jewelry, just because I never have trouble with stainless steel. Okay, and now we're going to close up the jump ring. And we've got our first earring. That was pretty easy. The other thing that I like to do is I like to put one of these backs on the ear wire. They're made out of rubber, and you know, it just ensures that the earring isn't going to come out, and you won't lose your earring. You can get, you know, I've got a whole bag of them right here. So you can, you know, do a Google search and find them in a lot of jewelry supply websites. So there's our first one. And as you can see, it looks great with the necklace. I think it looks really cute. So let's go ahead and do our second earring. Whoops. Grab the bead, put it on the post. Grab my one-step looper tool. Thread it through the hole. Okay, just like that. Give it a little squeeze. Bend it a little bit. Make sure that the loop is closed using the round nose pliers. Close it up. Okay, just like that. And now we'll grab another jump ring. Open it up. Thread on the bead. Whoops. There we go. Thread on the other component. And now close up the jump ring. Whoops. I knew I was going to do that. Okay, let me try that again. Here we go. It's very difficult to do this on camera. Okay, close it up. And now we have the bead attached. Grab another jump ring. Open it up. Attach it to the top of this component. Okay, attach the ear wire to the jump ring. Let me see if I can stay in frame here. All right, let me try this again. It's been one of those mornings. Okay, hopefully I won't drop it a third time. That would not be good. Close it up. And now we have our second earring. Put the little back on the ear wire for security. And there you have it. There's the two earrings and the necklace. I think it looks great. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the bracelet. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to need to assemble the bracelet. First thing you're going to need is some beading wire, and I like to use beading wire that is 49 strands, and it's considered, you know, beading wire for heavy jewelry. I like to use this because when I use this kind of beading wire, let me just show you real quick. This is the kind that I'm using. It's called Flex Right by Beadsmith, and it's 49 strands. And as you can see here, it's rated for 48.8 pounds. 48.8 pounds before it breaks. So that's pretty strong beading wire. So when I use this kind of beading wire, I don't need to use wire guardians or anything to protect the wire because it's pretty strong, and the beads that I'm going to put on aren't that heavy. So I'm pretty confident with just using this and no wire guardian that it's going to work out just fine. So we're going to use this, and then we're going to be attaching some chain, but before we can figure out how long the chain's going to be, we need to assemble these beads here and figure out how long that is. My wrist, I'm going to make a bracelet for about a 6.5 inch wrist. The average is 7 inches, so you'll have to figure out and take into consideration the clasp as well, how much wire to cut. So let's go ahead and assemble these beads first, and then we'll move on to the wire. Okay, so I've got my beads. I've got my large pave beads, 3 of them. I've got 2 4mm beads, the exact same bead that was on the necklace, this little one here, dark copper colored. And then I also have 2 crimp beads. They're about 2 by 2 millimeters, and they're rated for something heavy as well. So when you get them, these are sterling silver because I like to use it. They're pretty reliable. When you get them, make sure they're rated for something heavy. It'll say on the packet or on the label. And then I've got some crimp covers as well, copper colored, that we're going to use. So let's go ahead and begin the assembly of these beads. To the end of my wire, and this wire, I cut myself a 10-inch piece just because I like to use a lot of beading wire, and I like to have a lot of room. I don't want to have to like struggle because the beading wire isn't long enough. So cut yourself a decent amount, and then we'll go ahead and thread on our beads. So the first thing we're going to do is thread on one of the larger pave disco ball beads. Okay, and then comes a 4mm bead, and then another larger bead, another 4mm bead, and then the larger bead again. Okay, so this is what we have. So on each end, we're going to have a crimp bead and a crimp cover. So let's go ahead and attach the first one. So we go ahead and thread on the crimp bead. And then take the end and thread it through again. And what we're going to do here is form a loop. So like I said before, it's critical that you get the right size crimp. It's a 2 by 2, and the reason it's a 2 by 2 millimeter crimp is because this beading wire is very thick, and you want to make sure that you can have two threads inside that crimp. All right, so now we're going to pull it to form a little tiny loop, and it doesn't have to be very big, just enough to get a jump ring through it. Okay, once you've got that, you want to get your crimp tool. I use this one. I've had it for years. I don't even know what brand it is, but it's been very dependable. So you want to use the first notch, give it a little squeeze, just like that. Make sure that when you squeeze it, you've got a wire running through each channel. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. Then once you've got that, turn it on its side and use the second notch to close it up. And I always like to use pliers to squeeze it to close it even more, or basically flatten it out, just to make sure that it's not going to come apart. Okay, once you've got that, you get your crimp cover, put it on. Whoops, try that again. Put it on like this, and then using the same crimping tool, using the second notch, the one that's further out, use that one to close up your crimp cover. Okay, and then you can also use that to round it off a little bit. So I like to turn it on its side, give it a little squeeze, just to get that perfectly round shape on that crimp cover. So you want to run it all the way around this crimp cover, make sure it's round. Now, as you can see, I've got quite a bit of a tail here. I don't want that much of a tail, so I do want a little bit because I'm planning on running the tail through one of the beads. So I'm going to cut it and leave myself maybe ½ an inch, something like that. So now when I take the beads down to the other end, I thread that tail in through the first bead to give it some security. And as you can see, the crimp cover is actually almost the same color as this 4mm copper colored bead. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's do the other side. Take the clip off, thread on the crimping bead, bring it down to where the beads are, thread the other end through it. It's a little tricky because now we're working with less space, and then make sure that it goes through the first bead. So now my little crimp is gone inside. There it is. Okay, so let's get that tail out. All right, now thread it through the first bead, just like this. Pull it, bring it down, pull the tail a little bit more. It's a little tricky because it keeps wanting to go inside of my larger bead. Let's pull the tail down, and then you don't want it really snug. You want a little bit of space, because if it's too snug, it's going to be too stiff and it's not going to be very flowy. So here it is. I've pulled the tail. It's through the first bead here, and there's my crimp. There's my loop. Get your crimping tool, using the first notch, crimp it, just like that. Okay, and now use the second notch to close it up. And like I said before, I like to squeeze it a little bit more with my pliers, my chain nose pliers, just to make sure that it's nice and tight. Once you've got that crimp cover on there, use your crimping tool to close it up, and then continue to squeeze it a little bit to get that nice round shape all the way around. You want a nice round crimp cover, and it helps to hide the seams as well when it's nice and round. Okay, so I think it's pretty round. And now snip off the rest of the beading wire. We don't need that. And here's our beaded component. Now from here, we're going to attach some chain and then a clasp. And so now we have to figure out how much chain to cut. So it all depends on the size of your wrist. I'm going to use a clasp that's about 15 millimeters, about ½ an inch long, so you need to take that into account. You also need to take into account the jump rings. This component right here, it measures about 2 inches approximately, including the loops, about 2 inches. And I'm going to make a bracelet to fit 6.5-inch wrist. Most women have 7-inch wrists, so you need to take that into account. But we need to cut some wire. So after I do the math for a 6.5-inch wrist, I'm going to come back and we're going to go ahead and cut some wire and assemble the bracelet. Okay, so we're going to attach 3 pieces of chain to each one of these loops. The chain's going to come off the loop, and then we're going to attach the clasp. It's going to be very stylish, I think, if we do it like that. It'll be different. And I think, you know, because the necklace has a lot of chain, I think it'll go well. So I've cut myself 6 small pieces of chain, and each one is about 1 3/4. So what I've done, you know, as far as the math, so we know that the clasp is 1/2 inch. And we know that my wrist is going to be, or the bracelet is going to be 6.5 inches long. So basically, if we subtract the length of the clasp, that leaves us with 6 inches. This component here is about 2 inches. So 6 minus 2 equals 4. So that means that I have to have, on each side of the bracelet, I have to have 2 inches of chain. 2 plus 2 equals 4. So, but then you got to account for the jump rings. So what I did is I cut myself, instead of cutting 2-inch pieces, I cut myself 1 3/4-inch pieces to account for the jump rings that we're going to use to attach the chain and the beads. So that's basically how I came up with the math. So for you, if it's 7 inches, you're going to have to sit down and do some numbers, figure out how long each piece of chain should be, making sure that you take into account the jump rings. Okay, so again, the component is 2 inches. I know I'm going to need 2 inches on each side. That makes 6. The clasp is 1/2 inch, so that's 6.5 inches. So if the chain is 2 inches long, I'm going to cut myself 3 pieces. However, I do need to account for the jump rings, so the pieces are actually less than 2 inches. They're 1 3/4. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit of a long story on how I got here, but that's basically how I came up with the math. So let me go ahead and grab some jump rings, and we'll get going. Let's go ahead and start attaching the chain. So we'll grab a jump ring, our trusty 18 gauge jump ring, open it up, thread it through the loop of the beaded component that we created. Okay, just like that. And then very carefully thread on each piece of chain. I'm going to try to stay in frame here so you can see what I'm doing. That's the first one. And here's the second one. And here's the third one. And by the way, these are 5mm jump rings. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but 5mm, 18 gauge. I'm going to close it up. Make sure that the jump ring is nice and closed so we don't have any problems later on. All right, so here it is. We've attached our 3 pieces of chain. And now I like to kind of lay it out like this, make sure that the chain doesn't cross over each other or bunch up when I attach the second jump ring. So we're going to go ahead and open up the second jump ring. And then attach each end of the chain, kind of in the order that the other end was attached. Like I said, we don't want the chain to cross over each other. I mean, you could do that if that's the look that you want, but that's not what I'm looking for. So once the chain is on there, close up the jump ring. And so now we have our 3 pieces of chain attached. Okay. And now to the end of this jump ring, I'm going to go ahead and attach the lobster clasp. So we'll go ahead and grab another jump ring. Oops, of course I have to drop it. Let me do that again. All right, here we go. Open it up. Attach it to the jump ring that we attached at the end of the chain. Okay, just like that. And then attach the lobster clasp to the jump ring and close it up. And now we have one end of the bracelet completed. Okay, as you can see. So now we're going to attach the other end. So let's go ahead and grab another jump ring and open it up. Attach it to the other end of the beaded component. Just like that. And now we're going to attach each piece of chain. So you want to grab the last link and thread it through. Thread through the first link. There's the first piece of chain, and here's the second piece of chain. And now attach the third piece of chain, just like that. Okay. Close up your jump ring. Make sure it's nice and closed. And now we have the 3 pieces of chain. So now we're going to attach the other jump ring to the other end. And again, you want to lay out the chain so that it doesn't, so the bits don't cross over each other. Okay. So one at a time, let's go ahead and thread it on to the jump ring. There's the first piece. There's the second piece. And now the third piece. All right, so we've got our 3 pieces of chain attached. Close up the jump ring. And now that part is done. So now all we have to do is attach a very large jump ring to this the smaller one. And I like to use a 10mm. And by the way, do your lady friends a favor, and whenever you do a bracelet, use a large lobster clasp, because they're so much easier to put on when the clasp is larger. If you use a tiny one, I know the tiny ones look really cute and they're more elegant looking, but it's just so much better to use a large lobster clasp, and you can put it on yourself and you don't have to ask anybody to help you. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and attach the larger 10mm jump ring to this one. So here's the larger one. And we could have done it before when we had the other jump ring open, but oh well. I'm not always very efficient. So we're going to go ahead and open this one and attach it to the smaller jump ring at the end. Make sure it's nice and closed. Okay, and we're done. Here it is. I think it's going to be really pretty on, and it's going to look great with our necklace. What do you think? I think it's pretty. It's different. It's, you know, you don't see a lot of bracelets with multiple chains. It's going to look really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put the necklace back on the necklace stand, and yeah, I'm going to pin the bracelet to it and the earrings so you can see the whole thing, and I'll be right back. The whole thing, the necklace, the earrings, the bracelet, I thought it turned out really, really nice. What do you think? I think the earrings are just the right size. They're not too overbearing. They don't compete with a necklace, and they match perfectly. I think it's gorgeous. And the bracelet, very unique. I've never seen a bracelet with multiple chain bits like this. I think it's gorgeous, and it looks really, really nice together. It's a nice set. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit about how to put things together. If you haven't seen the video about the necklace, please take a look at it, because in that video I sit down with you from beginning to end to show you the process, the whole process, including the design layout. So if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna go ahead and put a link in the description below. And anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't done it. I want to try to create more content for you guys, and you know, I'll try to do it more often, not just bag and beadbox creations, but other things as well. So anyway, thanks a lot again, and we'll see you next time.